This is the Russian Dynamite, Masha Slamovich.
Becca here.
This is Not America's Sweetheart, Davian. And
It's Billy Starks. And
the super fly guy, Trayvon Jordan.
This is the fly side flyer, Jalen Brandon.
Hardcore Princess, Jules Malone.
Hi there, this is the Bubblegum Princess, Alexia Nicole.
This is the Brazilian Wonder Woman, Christy Jane.
This is the baddest black belt, Chennai Kai.
This is Kid Bandit.
The smash hit Joel Bateman.
This is Robin Renegade.
Cody Hawk.
Brutal Bob Evans. And you are listening to Wrestling with Entertainment, one of my favorite podcasts in the whole wide world.
Hi, this is Daniel Mac Shaw, the promoter of Pro Wrestling Action, and you're listening to Wrestling with Entertainment.
Hello, and welcome to the show. It's Wrestling with Entertainment, the only audio experience on the web today, the trusted choice for interviewing all your favorite wrestlers every Tuesday and Wednesday on YouTube and Castbox, sponsored by Rogue Energy and Player One Coffee. I'm, of course, your host, James J., and it's a great day for wrestling, because we are wrestling with the promoter of Pro Wrestling Action, Daniel Max Shaw.
Hello. Hey, James. How are you today?
I'm good. How are you today?
I'm doing just great, brother. Just great.
And can you tell us where we could see Pro Wrestling Action in action next?
Well, Pro Wrestling Action is based out of Central Florida, and our next scheduled event will be our big anniversary show, the All-Star Battle Volume 5, kicking off our 5th year, and that'll be Sunday, July 20th, at the historic Sanford Civic Center in downtown Sanford, Florida.
Awesome. And where can we find yourself in Pro Wrestling Action on social media and merchandise?
Perfect. Thank you for asking. We try to keep it pretty basic and keep everything Pro Wrestling Action wherever possible. So there's our website, ProWrestlingAction.com. You'll find us on Facebook and Instagram on Pro Wrestling Action. On X, formerly known as Twitter, we are PWA Events. And of course, we are YouTube channel, which if you just search Pro Wrestling Action Florida, you will find us. And we have every single show we've ever done, with one exception because of technical issues. Every match, every show uploaded. So if you are new to us, you can find out where our stories have gone through the years. If you're currently a fan, you can relive some of the great moments, and you can watch the playlists in show order. You can watch it in character order. If you want to focus on our women's division, the Marvels, we have a playlist for that. There's all different ways to watch our events.
All right. And you don't even have to go looking for it. All of the links to all of the promotion's social media and Daniel's as well will be in the description of the video below, but on YouTube and Castbox.
Perfect. Thank you, James.
Absolutely. I mean, we've been talking about it. Can you tell us about your promotion, Pro Wrestling Action?
Sure. So we are starting our 5th year in July. Really excited to do it. The whole concept of Pro Wrestling Action initially was, what is unique about pro wrestling? There is so much. But when I was meeting with one of my TV producers, originally this was supposed to be a TV show. It's becoming more of a live event. The concept was, what would make us different than any other wrestling show? And she kind of pulled out of me, okay, what are your other passions? I said, well, I love acting. I love comic books. She goes, well, she goes, is there a commonality between comic books and pro wrestling? I said, well, yeah, you've got larger-than-life good guys and bad guys. I'm like, oh, wait a minute. Yeah, let's go with that. So we ended up designing our look to feel very comic booky. Our booking tends to really focus on very over-the-top characters and personas. In fact, I believe our initial slogan was heroes to cheer, villains to jeer, Pro Wrestling Action. So the idea was, I wanted to communicate to people, one, with the comic book styling, we're family friendly so you can bring the kids. Two, that we are larger than life. So I always tell people, hey, if you love wrestling, you'll love us. If you don't like wrestling, you'll love us, because there's always something in our show to really bite into. It's literally for kids from ages 1 to 100.
And I totally, you could definitely get the comic book vibes from Pro Wrestling Action for sure.
Yes, we do.
Like you said, heroes to cheer, villains to veer. I mean, your first ever event was called Heroes versus Villains.
Yeah, you did your research.
Yeah.
And in a way, our first three shows really were very heavily into the comic book Easter eggs and themes. So my first concept was, okay, well, in your first comic book, first issue, you meet the heroes, you meet the villains. So that was the concept, that the first event would be kind of the introduction to who we are. So you get to know our characters, our roster. And then we went for a second show. I was like, well, what do we do next? Okay, well, the heroes and villains will battle. And I was pulling up different comic book titles that I'd loved as a kid. And there was one called the All-Star Squadron, which was a book that was about the 1940s superheroes and villains, but it was about all of them. It was just every hero they could find, every team. I'm like, what if we did the All-Stars? And then with my booking team, we ended up coming up with the All-Star Battle. And by the way, our main event was a 4-way, which will come into play in a minute. And then I believe our third event, we were like, all right, what else can we do in comic books? And like we thought Teen Titans. We came up with Rise of the Titans, and this almost fell in by coincidence. Our two largest wrestlers at the time, Agony, the maker of Nightmares, and the master of the Chicago Bear Hug, Steve Michaels, were on the show. The biggest guys, we put them in the main event as the Titans, basically fighting each other. And then after that, we decided, okay, it might be a little hard to be purely comic book, show after show after show after show. So we said, all right, we are still larger than life, but we can theme all of our shows and be original that way. So we've themed our shows after the circus, after outer space, after the Old West. And then we always come to our WrestleMania, which is the All-Star Battle, aimed after that second show. And we basically call the All-Star Battle Volume 2, 3, 4, or 5, whichever one we're doing that year. And that's kind of turning the page, pun fully intended, on last year and starting the new year. So it's kind of our reset and our big annual event.
And, you mentioned, kind of steering away from, strictly comic book references.
Yes.
The one that definitely sticks out is To Infinity and Beyond.
Yeah. That was our first outer space themed show, and that was our first outdoor show. In fact, that was a challenge because the venue, literally with only a 2-day notice, told me, hey, you can't do the show inside the venue like we told you. You're going to do it outdoors. I'm like, what? And because they just got some new equipment, and they're like, we're not going to have this equipment cleared, so either you run the show outdoors or you don't run it. So we ended up having to level the dirt, level the ground, cut into their outdoors to make sure the ring would be appropriate for outdoors. But it went off terrifically.
What are some of the challenges doing a show outside rather than, an indoor venue?
Well, first of all, you're dealing with the elements. Is it going to rain? If it's going to rain, how much rain before you have to call a show? If it's light, not so bad, but you could be running the show and halfway through it downpours on you, and then your event is gone. So if you're planning for that, do you bring in a tent? Which we do. We do actually now a lot of outdoor shows, and we'll use tents for that. And then the challenge with the tent is, okay, is the tent good enough? Is it too low? If it's too low, once you go back a few rows, you're starting to obscure the view of the fans. Another issue is the heat, because we're in Florida. I remember when we did that show, it was March of 2022, so it wasn't too bad. But if you were doing that same show in July, it's going to be hot outside.
Right. I mean, like you said, if that one was in March, I would be more scared of the rain at that during that time than the heat.
Yeah, and we were lucky because we didn't have a choice, but there was no rain that weekend, so we were able to get away with it, thankfully. But yeah, that's an issue. I mean, I remember one show to another promotion years ago I went to. They did an outdoor show, and I don't know that the forecast really called for rain, but man, it poured like crazy, and they had to shut the show halfway down because we saw lightning. And I myself ran up to the promoter. I'm like, brother, he goes, yeah, I think we're gonna have to call it. I'm like, you have to call it. It's lightning, and you've got a wrestling ring which is 4 lightning rods in the middle of the field. So they had to cut that show immediately halfway through. So yeah, the elements are really your biggest challenge when you're dealing with the outdoors.
Another interesting show you put on was called "Put It on the Ritz."
Yes.
I'm not sure if that's more of a Young Frankenstein reference or just.
Oh, okay. I didn't think about that. Although I love that movie. No. So when I said we do themes, it just has been working that every May since we started running. Every May we pick a decade, and that's the theme. So our first year we did, I'm actually looking at the posters now, that wrestling show, which was a 70s themed show. The next year, I believe we did Radical Rumble, which was our 80s themed show. And then that next year, we were like, all right, do we do the 90s? And we're like, now it's too obvious. Let's swerve everybody and go back to the 1920s. So our show is themed after the 1920s, and one of the biggest songs was Put It on the Ritz.
I gotcha.
Yep. In fact, we just finished on May 18th. We just finished Shake, Rattle, and Rumble at the Center of Deltona, Florida, where we did our first 50s doo-wop style show. And that doesn't influence necessarily the matches so much as everything around it. So we try to make a themed experience for people coming to the show. Obviously, our graphics, which are amazing. In fact, reach out to Eric Child for graphics for your shows or businesses because he kills it on all of our graphics. But that beyond our graphics and promoting the show, when you get to the show, it influences the music we're playing in the meet and greet and throughout the show. It influences the look of the show. I have a set designer who does an amazing job. Marie Hertigan, she owns a company, Big Family Custom Creations in Central Florida. They do a lot of custom apparel for the pool playing industry, and they also do lots of promotional items for businesses. They're tremendous. And they'll redo our entrances for every single show to match the theme. They did an amazing one on our second outer space themed show. We did one called Lightspeed Ahead earlier this year, and that was January 26th at the Stanford Civic Center. Normally, I go with the old school double entrance where I have a heel entrance and a face entrance. But on that one, we had a single entrance, and it was designed to be an homage to the Star Trek transporter pad. So she did an amazing job where essentially you're in the audience and you're not sure who's coming out yet. And all of a sudden you start seeing the silver transporter tube vertical spinning, and lights are shooting out of it, legs are shooting out of it. And suddenly on the third turn, you saw the wrestler and they popped out with their music and it went off amazingly well.
Another thing that, obviously the themes of the shows are, very much a big part of pro wrestling action. Another one I would say is probably your attire for those shows, no?
Yes. So the interesting thing is a lot of people ask me on the first few shows, why aren't you doing a championship? I purposely made it so that we would not have a championship until we were 1 year in. And the reason on that to me was I felt that we really had to earn the audience's attention and love for the show before having a championship. I've seen other shows. Again, I don't want to criticize any particular promotion, but I've been to other shows where the very first show of the promotion, hey, we got like 4 championships, and to me, who cares? Because you're not emotionally invested yet in this promotion or these wrestlers, so the titles don't really mean much. But by having the show after show and building our audience and people really caring about our characters and our storylines, we were getting close to that first year. And we announced, okay, on our anniversary show, there'll be the first ever championship. And this show before it will lead up to that with qualifying matches. Now people cared about the characters. They cared about the storyline leading up to the championship. So then our very first anniversary show, which is the All-Star Battle Volume 2, our main event was, again, the All-Star Battle, which for us will always mean a 4-way. and it was for the first championship, the All-Star. And since then, we have slowly introduced other belts because I don't want to overload the show with just a whole lot of hardware.
Right.
So it took us about another year before actually a little less than a year before we introduced our women's championship, the Marvels with a Z, Marvels Championship. And we only just recently at last year's All-Star Battle introduced the Voltage Championship. So consider that one the workhorse, the Intercontinental Championship basically for us.
But let's talk about the All-Star Championship for right now.
Sure.
Agony was your first ever champion. Why was he the right guy to put the strap on to be your first, champion?
So again, in building up our storylines, so Agony was on show number 1, never missed a show, and he was an unstoppable monster with the good Dr. Eric Christopher as his manager, some would say controller, and we just built show after show. He was completely unstoppable, so he was a favorite leading into that match. Although that match was the fan favorite Cha Cha Charlie, ERA, and my brain freeze on this one. And I believe the Scally like Bellamy Thatcher. Sorry, I had a brain fart for a second there. Was a beloved baby face with us, a pirate who's become a wrestler, and then Dr. Eric Christopher's Agony. And it just really kind of made sense. He was unstoppable and still carried the belt for nearly a year, I believe, a day short of a year, until the very next All-Star Battle when he lost it to the Emerald Emperor, Simon Says.
Yes. And now your current champion, fourth champion overall, is Ray Fury. Tell us about Ray Fury.
Yes, although we kind of skipped over, don't want to skip over the Authority, Eddie Torres, who's a veteran of the Squared Circle, and actually defeated Says and Ray Fury in a triple threat at Renegades of the Ring 2024 in Altamont Springs for the championship. And we actually had both Ray Fury and Eddie Torres debut with us the summer before at All-Star Battle number 3. And the two of them do not like each other. So they've been going back and forth. And then finally, we were supposed to have one big last opportunity for Ray to face Eddie for the championship at All-Star Battle 4. Eddie, unfortunately, was not able to make the show, so that match was postponed to Monster Mash 2, and that's where Ray Fury won the title.
And you mentioned, in July, it will be 5 years of pro wrestling action.
Yes.
What does that kind of mean to you? Because, indie promotions, kind of come and go. There's not a lot of constants. So what does it mean to you to have the show, the promotion, last as long as it has?
Oh, it means so much. And technically, I should say it's starting our 5th year, to be fair. Well, we were kind of like the little show that wouldn't say no, because what a lot of people don't know was I originally was planning to do a television show, and I was approached by someone who had known me as an announcer, because I've been an announcer for, about 12, 13, 14 years now. And it was supposed to be a TV show in Georgia, and I was working with somebody for almost a year on developing that show. And unfortunately, that show, after working on it for at least 9 months straight, was not meant to be. And, at the time, I was like, it's frustrating, but I ain't giving up. So I'm like, let me just do it in Orlando, where I'm based out of. And I'll just do it without the person in Georgia who wasn't able to come through on his part. And I was really focused on it being a TV show. But my background is in wrestling. I started with Chris Carson's Southern Championship Wrestling, based out of Central Florida, because there have been a few SCWs through the years. And that's really where I learned my announcing, my promoting, not realizing in a way I was kind of training myself for what I would do at Pro Wrestling Action down the road. And speaking with one of my really good friends, Eddie Rivera, who was our audiovisual guy, he's like, oh, you know what? Why don't we just do shows? Why don't you do this TV thing? I was like, dude, this is my whole plan. I've got scripts and scripts and scripts. And he said something to me. I was like, what? He goes, well, Dan, you actually never run a full show on your own, and you're going to rent a whole studio and a TV crew and production and blow all this money? And I'll do the PG version. I said, well, don't confuse me with the facts. And I realized he made sense. So I said, well, listen, we're still going to videotape every show, and I want it edited, and eventually we'll do something like that. But yeah, you're right. Let's just start doing the live events and going for it. Because originally we were shooting for doing something like what NWA Power became, which was a studio-based show, which again, it never happened. So we ran our first show. We didn't run our first show. Let me take that back. In March of 2020. So what a lot of people locally know, but don't know, who are just coming to know us about now, January 2nd of 2020, I said, I'm going to do this. We're doing the show. I rented the building. I got sponsors. We flyered the towns for 2 months. We were going crazy promoting the show and not knowing that in 2 months the coronavirus would become a thing.
Right.
And I remember the wild thing was that week, you were hearing things were shutting down. You weren't sure. And then there was a rumor that WWE was going to move SmackDown to the Performance Center, which is literally 10 minutes from where our show was. Again, not knowing this would be a non-ticketed event. So I remember telling some of my friends, I'm like, well, I don't think it'll happen, but if it does, what a great story. And they're like, what do you mean what a great story? I'm like, hey, little guy does his promotion. It's been his dream for years, and now he has to go up against the biggest company on the planet. You can't write a better story if you tried. But unfortunately, it wasn't quite meant to be. The night before, we got a call from the city that we're going to run the show in, saying, hey, listen, we're really scared about this virus that's going around. We have a lot of people dropping out. We're getting all different notices from the government of what we can do. So we really think it's best to close the building, and we'll, when we're allowed to open up again, you'll come back, but we don't want to take a chance. And he goes, it's really up to you, because you can make a final decision. But as I was talking to him, I was getting calls from people in my own production scared to death of coming out. So, we had to make a health choice at that point, because, again, we didn't know what was going on with this virus.
Right.
So literally the day before the show, we had to postpone our first show. And I was thinking, hey, everybody, we'll be back in a few weeks when this thing blows over. So a few weeks became 15 months. And then we ran Heroes versus Villains at Tuffy's Music Box in downtown Sanford. And it's been tremendous ever since.
So, it does sound like there was a lot of obstacles in your way to kind of get this off the ground.
Oh, yes. 100%.
The whole TV deal, not working out, coronavirus. During all these, obstacles, what kind of gave you the conviction to kind of see this through to make pro wrestling action a reality?
Honestly, it might be partially ego and stubbornness. Because quite frankly, when the first opportunity came up, which was the show that never happened in Georgia, getting into it, I got so excited that I was really pushing on making it happen. I would fly up to Georgia or drive up to Georgia from time to time, look at talent, look at buildings, look at the studio that the guy wanted to shoot in, making plans. And then when that fell apart, I was like, you know what? Part of it was, honestly, I told a lot of people about it. So the problem is when you tell people you're going to do something and then it doesn't happen, you kind of look a little foolish. And I was like, I did invest 9 months of my life into this to just let it go poof and just be another promotion that said they're going to do something, they didn't do it. I'm going to do the darn thing. So I just put nose to the grindstone and said, no matter what, we're going to do it. And of course, there's an old saying, if you want to hear God laugh, tell him your plans. Coronavirus knocked that one out, but we just kept our ears open. I won't lie, I was a little bit frustrated. And then I was actually having a conversation with somebody in the city of Sanford thinking, man, I can just find a really cool building that they will let us run in. And the lady who I was talking to had told me about Tuffy's Music Box, which is a music venue that had also not been able to open up because they also were under the same legal restrictions. So I went to go meet with them, and they're like, yeah, we were going to open up in March of last year, and we got shut down, and we've had the music venue literally empty for a year and a half. But, we're allowed to run now. So I basically just said, guys, listen, it's meant to be. Same exact thing happened to us. Our dream was to run our show. It got delayed because of Corona. Your dream is to start your music venue. Why don't we work together? Let me come in, give me the building. I'll bring in people to watch the wrestling show. And then these people, obviously, you can market to for music. So the funny part was they agreed with a few conditions, but the one that almost made me say no was we cannot give you Fridays or Saturdays. And I'm like, wait a minute. That's your two biggest days for wrestling. Right. You can only do it on Sunday. I'm like, Sunday? And I will admit, there was for about a minute, I was thinking of saying no. And then I was talking to some of the people who run the show with me now, and they're like, hey, listen, you've been trying to do this for a year and a half. What's to lose? I'm like, you know what? You're right. What the hell? Let's do it. And Sunday has worked out tremendously. Sunday has been our main day for 4 years plus.
And one of your, obviously other champions is your Marvel's champion, Lexi Gomez.
Yes.
Currently 660 plus days as the women's champion. Tell us about Lexi.
Yeah. Are we at that number already? I knew it was pretty close. I have to. I cheat and I use Cage Match to look at my days.
I literally have. So. That's literally where I got my information.
Lexi's been amazing. And actually, a lot of people don't realize this, but she's not the first Marvel's champion. We had a debut of the absolutely wonderful Vicky, the Captain Dreamboat, but she was injured and had to take a break from wrestling. And then at the time, I guess she annoyed the Detroit Barbie Marina Tucker at the wrong moment, and Marina made sure that injury was going to be a lot longer to get back from. So unfortunately, the title was vacated. And again, we made our All-Star. Our main event of the evening was our Women's Marvel's Championship at All-Star Battle would be number 3. And that was the Island Girl, Tracy Taylor, who you've seen on OVW. She's got a great background from WWE back in the mid-2000s. She's currently featured on Wow Women of Wrestling as the Island Girl Kalaki. She's absolutely tremendous. We had Persia Pierce, the MMA fighter, and the Detroit Barbie Marina Tucker, and of course, the Hollywood Horror, Lexi Gomez. And that was also the debut of who would become her let's call it a manager, her director, the demented director, Dean Taylor. And yes, she won the championship at that show, and she's held onto it by hook and crook and tooth and nail ever since. And now she's going to be facing Marina Tucker on July 20th, again at the All-Star Battle, one-on-one for the Marvel's Championship.
Hell yeah. And I know Detroit Barbie has had her issues with Joey Mayberry in the past. Glad to see that she got past that.
Well, remember now it's Joey Galore. Mr. Mayberry has had a bit of a change of attitude. And he's actually been having quite the issue with the cheese. If you know one of the best fan favorite wrestlers in the indie scene today, he's the Gorgonzola Rock and Roller, the Sultan of Swiss, the Great Gouda, the cheese. It's also one of the Savannah Banana Bananas, I think they're called. Super popular guy. I mean, literally, he gets into the arena. I've got kids of all ages chanting cheese, 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 and before you know it, the craft slices are flying all over the arena. But apparently, he and Joey have really gotten into it in the last few shows. Back at Wanted Dead or Alive. I'm sorry, no, going back to Lightspeed Ahead. They were on a one-on-one match, and Joey, after the match, literally just beat the stuffing out of the cheese with cheese and stuffing. Sounds like a recipe. It got pretty violent, had to be torn apart. On the next show, our general manager, Jay Barrister Goodrich, thought it would be a great idea to make them a tag team. They fought better together, which ended interestingly. Better Together won, being the more sensible actual tag team versus two guys who kind of wanted to tear each other apart. Which, by the way, Better Together was thrilled because they've been trying to get a victory over the Cheese for years, and that was their victory over the Cheese. And if you see the video on our YouTube channel on the playlist of Wanted Dead or Alive, you'll see the action between the two of them, both during and after the match. That I believe we're going to have this to be settled at All-Star Battle.
Okay. So let's see if Joey can cut the cheese on All-Star Battle.
What a bunch. I'll let you say that. Yes. And, of course, getting back to Marina Tucker, she is, as they say, Detroit tough and Barbie beautiful. She is a veteran of the squared circle now. She's been trained by the late great Off of the Wild Samoan. She knows her stuff. She's really a student of the game. She has a love since she can remember pro wrestling and can talk very intelligently about pro wrestling from 30, 40 years ago, before her time. And as people also know, she, on a trip to Beverly Hills, was also found by Lana Starr, and that resulted in her also working on the TV show Wow Women of Wrestling under the name Penelope Pink, which you can actually see if you go to their website, WOWE.com, and tell you what channels in your area carry Wow Women of Wrestling. And we're lucky to have her on the show. She's an amazing talent. Like I said, absolutely Detroit as I said, Detroit tough, Barbie beautiful. She looks great in the ring, but you wouldn't want to mess with her. So I'm really looking forward to seeing Lexi and Marina get at it. I mean, they've got a history going back to basically the second year of pro wrestling action, and just getting them one-on-one, not in the All-Star Battle, but nobody else, just the two of them, mano-a-mano for the Marvel's Championship.
And you mentioned him, Alpha of the Wild Samoans.
Yes.
You know, he didn't. I don't believe he trained you, but he definitely re-sparked your love of pro wrestling. No.
Well, yeah, actually, it's interesting that you would say that. I actually was at a time this prior to planning to start a pro wrestling action. I was a little burnt out. I was kind of ready to kind of take a break from pro wrestling, and then somebody had actually given me a free ticket to Alpha's show. And if people only know Alpha from WWE as one of the Wild Samoans, Alpha actually ran his own promotion, WXW, for I think about 25 years, initially in Pennsylvania, where his family still runs a version of it. And then he moved to Florida, where he was running WXW in Mineola. I'm not really sure what year. Let me say 2010, but I could be off a little bit. And I came to the show in 2019 just to come to the show. And I guess I can tell the story. It's okay. When I got there, I recognized a bunch of wrestlers who knew me as a announcer, and suddenly they came up to me and said, "Hey, you should be a ring announcer." And I'm like, "Whoa! I'm just here to enjoy the show. I don't want to get heat with your ring announcer." And they said, "No, you don't understand. Our ring announcer doesn't want to be a ring announcer." I'm like, "Wait, what?" Apparently, and I'll throw his name out there, Lotto. He knows who he is. He's a great guy. Lotto just has been with Pops since day one, just loves Pops and would do anything for him. And Pops often would say, "Lotto, go announce the show." And he didn't really want to announce the show. He just did it out of love and loyalty to Pops. So when I was introduced to him, whoever introduced us said, "Hey, this guy's a great ring announcer." And Lotto was like, "Do you want my job?" I'm like, "Sure." He goes, "Okay, you can have it." And that was it. I was now the WXW ring announcer for the next 2 years. So that was actually pretty amazing. The great thing about it was getting to meet Alpha, get a lot of feedback from him, because, I mean, he's a WWE Hall of Famer. He ran his own school for so long. I mean, the whole Samoan bloodline, my God, I mean, who he's related to and who he inspired. So it was great to get feedback from him, and that was a fun 2 years.
You got any Alpha stories?
There's one I was gonna think of, but nah, that one's a little less than PG.
Hey, there's no censors on here, and It can't be worse. It can't be any worse than what Mickey Knuckles told us.
Oh, what did Mickey Knuckles tell you guys?
It was a very nothing to do with Alpha. It was just a very explicit what's the word? Strip club story. Let's just say that.
Oh, okay. Well, maybe not a specific story, but I'll just tell you what it was like to work for him. Because at that time, like I said, I was getting a little burnt out in pro wrestling. You know, there's amazing, wonderful people in pro wrestling, and there's not such amazing and wonderful people. So I was at a point where I was kind of like, do I really want to continue in this? But then working office shows, it was really more of a family than a company. So we would run the show. Everybody would get there at 2:00. They had a fairly long meeting where Alpha would talk for quite a while about history and where he was hoping people would be going with their wrestling careers. And the family ran the show. His daughter Valet, his wife Lynn's, affectionately was called Moms. They would help run the show. And then when the show was done, everybody stayed there and broke the ring down. And then he would invite you over to his house. And people would just sit around and talk. He'd give you feedback on the show and advice on what you're doing and how to make things better. So it was really different environment than I'd been used to in a lot of wrestling companies. Again, it was really much more of a family than anything else.
Okay. So we talked about the All-Star Championship. Same name, kind of self-explanatory. Marvels, definitely understand the reference. Can you tell us about the Voltage Championship and what kind of went into naming that title?
Okay, so again, we always try to flip back to some kind of comic book influence, which you can imagine where the Women's Championship name may have been inspired by, but it's Marvels with a Z, so nobody should sue me. On the Voltage, we were playing with, again, going back to comic book ideas for our titles, and I just started looking through old comic books, and I finally settled on Black Lightning, which he had a TV show a few years ago, and he was a comic book character. Has been a comic character since the 70s with DC Comics. And I was like, it'd be kind of cool to have something like Lightning or Shocking, and then we came up with Voltage, which if you look at our belt, the designer actually has hundreds of tiny little lightning bolts in the relief or the background of the title. So it absolutely looks beautiful. And our thought was, hey, this is your Intercontinental Championship. If you're thinking TNA, you're kind of thinking maybe X Division, that kind of like lightning fast type of action. So like, hey, you know what? This could be like the workhorse title, the not really the cruiserweight per se, but a lot of let's call it cruiserweights. A lot of lightning fast action. It's like, okay, makes sense. Lightning, Voltage, exciting. So we really like that concept for the title. And so far we've had two. The first one, again, at All-Star Battle was Nick Turner, the Desperado. And then after a series of matches with the Trust Fund kid, Blake Banks, Blake has won the title at Wanted Dead or Alive. He's defended it at Shake, Rattle, and Rumble, 2 days at the Leesburg Bike Fest. So he's already got about, 3 title defenses under his belt. And we're going into All-Star Battle. We'll see what happens there.
Now we have 3, great singles championships right now.
Yes.
I do have to ask, when are we going to see some tag titles?
That's a great question. When we were coming up with what should be our third title, we initially were leaning towards the tags, and we ended up going towards the Voltage. It's a good question. Historically, we do them at All-Star Battles, so you never know if we surprise you, or we could wait a little bit longer.
Okay. And would there be a name to these championships yet, or still in development?
I think it kind of dilutes things a bit, but yes, the next one to go to would be the tag belts, and we've already had our discussions of what that will be called. We have a few ideas, but we're not 100% sold yet. But there will. I will say this: when the tag belts are introduced, it will be a when, not an if. You'll see something a little different about our tag division than any other tag division. I'm just going to leave it at that.
All right. Now you mentioned it. Before being a promoter, you were very much the ring announcer. How
Yes.
has ring announcing helped you in your pro wrestling journey to become a promoter?
Oh, a lot. And honestly, I'm going to throw it all back with credit and appreciation to Chris Carson of Southern Championship Wrestling of Florida. With Chris, he started his promotion in '98 and ran a lot of great shows in the early 2000s in Central Florida. And I used to go as a fan. And then one day I bumped into some of the people that worked on his staff, and they're like, "Hey, you're that guy that comes to the shows." I'm like, "Hey, yeah." And we just started chatting, having a good time. Like, "You got to meet Chris, man. You guys would hit it off." So I ended up, next thing I know, I'm meeting Chris. We actually hit it off as buddies. So like one night, just over an adult beverage or two, I'm like, "Hey, man, if you ever need an announcer for a show," I'm just throwing it out there, kind of like half-heartedly. He goes, "Great, you're on the next show." I'm like, "Wait, what?" And he's like, "My announcer just said she can't make it, so thanks for volunteering." I'm like, okay. And it was a wild experience because I'll tell you, that show was in a small venue, the Salvation Army Gym in Sanford, Florida. And I'm taking it very seriously, but I'm saying the small venue on purpose. So I'm taking it very seriously. I've got the suit. I had his logo designed onto a piece that would fit on my suit, kind of going with the old 70s, 80s kind of style of the announcer jacket. And again, it's a small show. Although I will say we did have one big name. Billy Gunn was booked on the show. And all of a sudden, walks in Scott Hall, Razor Ramon, who was not booked. And I'm like, holy cow, that's Razor Ramon. And he comes up to me and shakes my hand and goes, "Hey, I'm Scott." And I'm blown away by the fact that Scott Hall would have to actually introduce himself to me. Okay, hey man, great to meet you. And he asked permission if he could go into the back and talk to some of the boys. I'm like, well, of course. But it really opened my mind as to like what the world of professional wrestling is behind the scenes. Where like somebody might think, that's just a little indie show. That's not WWE. That's not AEW now, or that's not TNA. But it's like the world is so much more tied behind the scenes than people even think. There's so many great wrestlers who you see on TV who own their own schools who are training the people that are getting onto the indie shows, such as Devon Dudley's got his Devon Dudley Academy in Winter Park. I know Pete Dunne runs a school called Fighting Spirit UK. Jamie Stanley, you've seen him on NWA, and Kakoa, the Hawaiian Warrior, who we've used many times. They run a school called the House of Champions in Longwood. I'm sure I'm forgetting a few schools because there's so many of them now. I know Hog, House of Glory, is coming down to town. Alistair Black, I believe his school is the School of Black. He runs, I think, out towards Tampa. So my point is really just in saying that behind the scenes, there is so much connection that it just blows you away the first time you see it. Where, hey, somebody from WWE is just hanging out at the show just because he knows somebody on the show wants to see how he's doing or just wants to hang out. And then sometimes these shows do lead to opportunities. Like back in the day, Alpha used to bring a lot of his WXW talent over to WWE when they needed local talent to help out on a show or two, which is a great way for them to get experience on working WWE. So a lot of times, watch WWE and watch your security guards and your medical professionals who get attacked or beat up. They may be your local independent wrestling stars.
Oh yeah.
And again, you never know who is going to be the next one. Like on our first 4 shows, we featured a heel by the name of the Mother Lover, Jake Tucker. And that was his thing. He was the lover boy, but only for the mothers. He wasn't interested in the daughters. He would romance all the mothers in the audience. And he is now a WWE superstar in NXT. He's going under a different name, so I'll let you figure that out when you watch that NXT. And you never know who somebody you're seeing at that local indie show where you're 5 feet away from them and talking to them at the merch table is going to be the next big WWE superstar. And even if that doesn't happen, just the idea of supporting your local independent wrestling promotions, because we don't have the Vince McMahon, Tony Khan budget. So we have to get creative. We have to flyer. We have to work the towns. We have to talk to people that come to the shows. And there's a lot of heart and soul put into your local independent wrestling show. Admittedly, some are good, some are not so good. But if you love professional wrestling, don't just go watch WWE. Again, watch it, but don't just watch WWE or AEW or TNA. Go find your local independent wrestling shows and find the ones that you like and meet. That gives you an opportunity really to meet and greet with the wrestlers on a basis which would be rare on something like a WWE, AEW, just for the size of it. And it's really a kind of a different experience, like how close you are to the action. And again, I fell in love with it at SCW, and without really realizing I was preparing myself to be a promoter, I just fell in love with SCW, and I said, "Hey, any way I can help you, I will help you." So I was the announcer for many of the shows. I would find sponsors. I'd get people to help flyer the towns. Eventually, I would help out in the booking committee, and not realizing I was essentially training myself to become a promoter.
What is something you know now about promoting that you wish you knew when you first started?
That's a great question. When I first started promoting, something I wish I knew now. Boy, I'm having a brain freeze on this one. You think that would be an easy one to answer. There's so much you learn. To be frank, I don't know that I would want to have changed anything, because there's an old saying, "God bless the crooked road that brought me straight to you." Actually, it's not just saying. I think it's a line from a Garth Brooks song.
Rascal Flatts song.
But had I known things before, would I have ended up where I was? I don't think so. Had I not joined SCW just by that conversation and fell in love with it, would that have led me to meet the fellow that wanted to do the show in Georgia? Probably not. Had I not gone through that process of what was initially looking like a disaster, 9 months, and then nothing to show for it from the show in Georgia, would that have led me to try to start the first show? Probably not. Had we run that first show in the heart of the pandemic, it might have been a complete disaster. We might have had no fans show up because people are scared to death to be in a crowd. So the fact that we had to wait 15 months and people were just dying to get out of the house and go do things, I think certainly helped us get that first huge. We sold the building out and it was standing room only, I should have said, on the Heroes versus Villains. I think that helped us get to where we were going to go. And to be frank, at the time from the first show, which didn't happen, to the time of the first show that did happen, gave us a lot of time to refigure out who we are as a promotion, the storylines we wanted to do, the talent we wanted to get. So I think kind of everything worked out the way it was supposed to be. Had I known, you could have avoided this, you could have avoided that, I don't know that we would have gotten to where we are today.
Okay, fair enough. Now,
A longer version of that answer than you were looking for, but that's what came to my mind.
No worries. Nobody, like I always say, nobody came here to hear me talk. It's the Daniel Max also.
Well, like I say, nobody comes to the show to hear me. They come to the show to see great professional wrestling action.
Well, that's a good segue. I think a lot of people come to see the suits you wear at the shows, no?
So I've taken a bit of a break from that, yes. So when I was announcing for other promotions, I'm very conservative. And by the way, I don't really announce that much anymore. Since becoming a promoter, I've really reduced my announcing. I still do it, but it's not like it used to be. But when I used to announce for other promotions, very conservative. I always wore a suit, sometimes a tuxedo for bigger shows. I would even, if the show had colors, like a sports team has certain colors, if the promotion had like certain colors that were identified with them, I would try to match that in my tie and my shirt. But when I decided to run Pro Wrestling Action, I said, all right, man, I'm going to have fun with this. Every show is going to be a comic book. Every show is going to be this or that. So I started buying suits, if I didn't have them already, that were themed to go to the shows. So the first couple suits, I did a comic book blue, then a super bright red, and I was trying to get a yellow because primary colors look at Superman's costume, blue, yellow, red. Although they didn't have the yellow suits, I had to go for a gold lame suit. And then as we started running the different themes, I would like look at, okay, what is our theme? What can I wear to match that theme? When we did our first outer space show, the colors I'm wearing, I wore a silvery space jacket, and the other colors kind of were like the Buzz Lightyear colors. When we did Monster Mash, oh yikes, I'm wearing a suit that looks like it's kind of Davis Pumpkins. Goodness, what else? The decades are kind of my favorites there. So the 70s show, I wore a leisure suit, which is something that people would know from the 70s. The 80s, I was wearing a pop collar, Miami Vice colors. I had a huge old cell phone out with me. But then, to be frank with you, I stepped back a bit this year. So I have Chad Green is my regular ring announcer for most shows now. And it lets me focus more on the production because I didn't realize it until I took a break from it. But both being the promoter and being an announcer, which is a performer on the show, it was, besides being kind of stressful, it's kind of hard to do two things and do them well.
Right.
So even though I would mentally switch from promoter to announcer when the show is about to start, there's still things a promoter needs to do during the show. I need to make sure everybody's happy with where they're seating. If there's a ticketing issue, there's different things that come up during the show that the promoter should be ready to take care of. A lot of behind the scenes stuff. So when I took a break from it, I realized how much better I felt about how the show was running. We were running very professionally before that, and not having to also then kind of ignore that to be the announcer guy. That being said, I still do some. I know the previous All-Star Battle, I announced the big match between Mikey Spandex and Chicago Bear Hug. I keep saying Chicago Bear. It's really the master of the Chicago Bears, Steve Michaels. Kind of at their request because they had trained with Alex Porteau in Orlando at the Pro Wrestling 2.0. And I was the announcer for the monthly school shows there. So they're like, hey, you've announced us since we started wrestling. Would you announce our match? I'm like, absolutely. So that was like a special one-off. And then we also do a lot of festival shows now. We did Mount Dora's Pitmasters and Pours last year, the big barbecue, which we're going to be doing again September the 13th in City of Mount Dora. Great time. Come out, eat a lot of barbecue, listen to a lot of great bands, and watch Pro Wrestling Action. Typically, when it comes to the festival shows, I still announce, or at least announce half the matches of those. And occasionally, if my regular ring announcer can't make a show, I'll strap on one of the silly suits and go get it done.
So you have the suit ready to go in case you need it.
Absolutely. That was Monster Mash 2. Chad was really sick, so I had to whip out the old David Pumpkin suit and announce that show. But again, like I said, I prefer to hand that off to Chad. But I'm there if needed.
All right. Speaking of if needed, I think that's a great segue into Daniel's bizarre adventure. You're in the pro wrestling world, and crazy, weird, and bizarre things are bound to happen. Can you tell us a road story that fits that description?
A road story?
Yes, or just something weird, crazy, or bizarre that happened around pro wrestling.
Good question. Well, let me see. So far, I just covered the fact that we got almost terminated by a coronavirus. So I guess that doesn't really count. Road stories. Last time I did a real road trip would have been doing OVW, just actually the month prior to what was supposed to be the start of Pro Wrestling Action. Drove up to Louisville, Kentucky, to announce OVW for Al Snow with my good friend and occasional pro wrestling action competitor, the extraordinary Chico Adams. 12. By the way, any wrestlers out there, if you ever got to do a road trip with Chico Adams, he's your guy because he will not let you drive. Literally 12 hours straight. I don't think the man paused except to pee and refill his gas tank. And that's both ways. But that was actually not so much a weird experience, but just a great experience. It was just so much fun to see how the OVW works behind the scenes and be part of that, because they still do live TV every Thursday night, which is really what I had wanted to do. So it was really cool to see how things work backstage and learn, how things are organized. But yeah, man, it's just holy cow. Lots of years of doing this. It's just, there's almost like too much stuff to think about at any given time.
I gotcha. And shout out to Chico Adams. Great human being.
Yes.
All right. I mean, we've been talking all things pro wrestling action, obviously very heavily, comic book based. Can you tell us about your love of comic books? Are you a Marvel, DC guy? What are you reading?
DC first, Marvel second, but I love them both. I just always was a comic book fanatic who never grew up. In fact, when I was almost 20 years old, my dad realized I was never going to stop with comic books, so decided, hey, why don't you just open up a store? So I opened up a comic book store in Elmont, New York called the Comics Web. That was a pretty wild experience, starting a store when you're basically just out of high school. It's kind of neat. We had it was a small town called Elmont, which is just on the border, if anybody knows New York, just on the border of Queens and Long Island. And we rented a tiny, tiny little store. Like, I'm going to tell you, it's probably the size of a large closet. And it was run by this little old lady. I remember when we first got in there, now I'm telling you weird stories about comic books, right? I remember when we first got in there, we walked in there and almost broke my ankle, because there was a hole in the floor that they covered with the rug. So we like, hey, you've got to repair this thing. You've got to repair this. You can't have people hurting themselves in the store. And it turned out it was wood that had just been chewed away by whatever insects. And it's like, hey, we can't have paper in a comic book store and get all chewed up by insects. You've got to fumigate this. You've got to redo this. So she had her nephew come in and do a cement floor, and he was doing it while drinking a six-pack. And I think he just kind of enjoyed the six-pack more than doing the work and never leveled out the floor. So for the year and a half we had the store, it was like walking on waves. It was just up and down and up and down with the cement floor. It was ridiculous, but met a lot of great people doing that. We were in a town that actually had quite a few comic book artists living in it. So at the time, Tom DeFalco, who was at the time the editor-in-chief of Marvel Comics, lived down the block. Alex Sajovic, he was drawing Web of Spider-Man, and I believe the Spider-Man newspaper series, lived down a few blocks away. And they would come in once in a while and just hang out and chat. And if kids were there and the kids heard who they were, they would just sign books for the kids. So it was a fun experience. Did that for a couple of years. But yeah, I've never really outgrown comic books. And I mean, literally, I'm sitting in my living room right now while I'm talking to you. And I will say that my house, at least my living room, is designed in early comic book.
So you said you're a DC guy. Who's your go-to hero?
Batman. Absolutely Batman.
Favorite
100%.
Favorite Batman trade paperback?
Oh, I would say Killing Joke, but I hate what they did to Batgirl. So not trade paperback, but my absolute love of a book, and a lot of it is sentimental. When I was a kid, they had published a Batman from the 30s to the 70s, is how old I am, which was like the best stories or the most important stories of Batman that were published from the very first book in Detective 27 to recent issues in the 1970s. There's also a version for Superman, and it's kind of sentimental because those were gifts from my mom and dad, which I still have.
So you go back to the Bob Kane / Bill Finger days.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. I mean, that they were already past when I came about, but when I was reading comic books as a kid in the 1970s, I would read a lot of reprints as well as like the current issues. So I probably read so much of what was originally published in the 30s and 40s. So I still have a love for that. Like I absolutely love World War II era superheroes like the Justice Society of America, or if you look at Marvel, Captain America, Submariner, the original Human Torch. So that was always like my go-to. Like if I saw anything to do with the Golden Age superheroes, that absolutely love that. But Batman, whether he's the 1930 version or a more modern version, has always been my main guy.
What is your thoughts on the current Batman movie? The one with the Patrick something? The guy from Twilight.
Robert Pattinson, yes.
Robert Pattinson.
Well done movie, but again, I tend to be like a bit nostalgic, so I kind of am a little old school with stuff. Like literally, as I'm talking to you, I'm looking to my right, and I've got a framed photo of me with Adam West and Burt Ward at MegaCon with the Batmobile. If that tells you anything.
Oh wow.
And again, I absolutely love the darker version done by Tim Burton with Michael Keaton in 1989. In fact, one of my happiest things I did last year, separate from Pro Wrestling Action, just to attend, there is a group that does actual orchestra live music for movies. So they actually showed Batman 89 with a live orchestra, and that was amazing experience. Absolutely. So literally, again, as I look to my left, I'm looking at my IKEA cabinets. I'm looking at various versions of Michael Keaton's Batman, from Hot Toys to other statues. And then as I look to my right, it's the Adam West, Burt Ward side. So those tend to be my favorites. I really like the way Ben Affleck portrayed Batman. The Patterson movie, I liked it, but it felt a little bit long, a little bit too serious. I kind of like a little bit more humor in my superheroes, which is probably why I lean towards the Adam West version.
You preferred the Bat-Tuesday.
There you go. And maybe the next Pro Wrestling Action show, Pro Wrestling Action presents the Bat-Tuesday. You never know. We might pull it off.
Well, speaking of actors, you were an actor yourself, no?
Yeah. Oh, you've done your homework. Okay. Yeah. I've done a little bit of acting in the day.
Well, can you tell us about what you've done and your experiences in acting?
Sure. Well, I'm from New York originally, so I did a lot of community theater. My very first role was Felix Unger in The Odd Couple, which anybody who knows me is going to really laugh because they'll say I'm more like Oscar Madison. But it was such an intense experience because it was my first ever role I tried out for, and it was basically a lead. So I went from never having done it before to having to basically memorize half the play, which was an absolute nerve-wracking experience. But once you overcome that, because I'm sure my first night was absolutely terrible. Once you overcome things and you start internalizing more, it works a lot better. And then I got to enjoy it. I did some of our minor theater work, and then I moved to Florida. I actually am an insurance agent. So at the time, I was really focused on my insurance career, but I would occasionally see ads for local productions. So I ended up, when I came to Florida, what did I did a TV commercial initially for a fellow who's a friend of mine now, Dean Baker. So Dean does commercials and other video productions under Post FX Studios in Central Florida. Shout out to Dean, who actually did shoot our first 2 Pro Wrestling Action shows as a favor to me. But the first time I met him, he called me like 3 years after I sent him a headshot. And he's like, "Hey, is this Dan Shaw?" I'm thinking, "Sure. Yeah. Who is this?" "Hey, it's Dean Baker. You probably don't remember me, but you sent me a headshot 3 years ago." He goes, "Are you still acting?" At the time I wasn't. So like any good actor, I'm going to say, "Of course I am." He goes, "Oh, great." He goes, "Are you available? It's a shoot. We have to do it today. The person dropped out. It'd be like 2 hours of your time. I'll pay $200." So right there, I was already good for it. I'm like, "All right, great. What do you see?" He goes, "Well, I see your photo, and I think you could be perfect. It's a sleazy salesman." I'm like, "I'm your man. I'm there. No problem. You can install me all you want for $200." So that a commercial as a sleazy car salesman. Apologies to all car salesmen out there who are not sleazy. Did air on a bunch of local cable channels. And then I got a little bit of the bug again. And then a director by the name of David Valsuto, who mostly did dramas, was doing a goofy comedy, and I say that with love, goofy comedy called Fiesta Grande, which was shooting in Orlando. And I went in for the audition. Actually went for like one of the lead roles, but he's like, "Well, yeah, that doesn't really work for you, but can you do this smaller part?" And it was this businessman. I'm like, "Well, okay, what do you want out of this part?" He goes, "I just need to be a sleazy businessman." I'm like, "Holy crap, I'm getting typecast here, man." Which ultimately I think it might be mostly because I might have been at the time the only guy in Florida with a suit. So that movie I think is on Tubi, Fiesta Grande with an E on the end. Very goofy comedy, R-rated, so I should say. I'm in like the first minute and then I'm out of it. But if it's somewhere, it's on Tubi for free. If you see it, watch the first minute with me, and if you like it, watch the rest. If not, you saw my part. And then Dean actually shot a TV pilot. What was the name of the pilot? I'm trying to remember. It's on his YouTube channel, PostFX Video, PostFX Studios, and I got to play another sleazy businessman. I don't know why, man. It's like every time somebody hires me, I'm a sleazy businessman. I swear, I'm like the nicest guy for a wrestling promoter, but I guess not when I'm hired as an actor. But yeah, that was an absolute blast. Of course, the name will come to me the minute we finish the interview. And I actually did that with one Eric Christopher, who is now Dr. Eric Christopher, probably the leading, most intense pro wrestling manager on the independent scene today, and is a big part of Pro Wrestling Action. And then Dean, to his credit, as a favor back to me, videotaped our first couple of shows for us. He's a great guy, so I always recommend anybody doing video production to hit up Dean Baker in Central Florida. So the acting is kind of just segued now into Pro Wrestling Action.
Okay. Well, let's get into the colossal question. Let's say they're making a movie about you. Every movie has a soundtrack. What would be the first 3 songs on your movie soundtrack?
Holy cow, that's an interesting question. First 3 songs of my movie soundtrack about me. Okay. I'm going to put on there what I like to call my spirit animal song, the theme from The Greatest Showman.
Okay.
That and that is literally was the inspiration for our second show. I'm sorry, our 4th show. So as soon as we were decided, okay, let's expand past comic books, I was listening to this song, and it's a song that just kind of empowers me. Like I see the vision of creating something that's larger than life, and that was Pro Wrestling Action. And I was actually listening to the song, which I've listened to probably 1,000 times, and there's a line in there about "We are the renegades in the ring," and I'm like, oh, that's it. And I called somebody on my staff and said, hey, the next show, Pro Wrestling Action, Renegades of the Ring. Next thing I know, we had this amazing circus poster of a wrestling show. And I know I'm kind of going off topic here, but when the poster was put together, it was made to look like old sepia tone, like an old paper poster that had been around for many years, and a lot of our talent on it. And then our artist decided, kind of as a little Easter egg joke, to throw in like a lion from a circus in there. And I became obsessed with, we need a lion on the show. And everyone told me, like, you cannot have a lion on the show. I'm like, I want a lion on the show. I'll figure out a way to get a lion on the show. At one point, I was going to take my little golden chihuahua and put a little lion costume on him and put him on the poster, but that didn't work. And then, unfortunately, a young lady we were booking for the show, and this is not good, but she came in later and did a great job, was Vicky Dreamboat. She had a leg injury, and we had to delay her a couple of shows till she was ready. And sure enough, who did I find to take that spot but Alejandra the Lion?
Perfect.
Who was a terrific wrestler. She's based out of the Dallas area. I know she's been doing great work lately. She's been on CMLL. She's been going around the world, and she's wonderful. I recommend her to anybody. She's got a great attitude. She's terrific in the ring. La Leona Alejandra the Lion. So like, I got my lion. So that would be that would be my theme. If I go with that would be my theme.
Okay. So 2 more songs.
Oh man, I knew you were going to go back to that. Okay. So somebody's writing a song about my life. What would be the other 2 songs? I mean, I can think of my favorite songs. I just don't know if they represent me. Soul Man by the Blues Brothers, Piano Man by Billy Joel. Those are some of my favorites. Would that represent me? I don't know.
I mean, I think they would maybe fit.
Maybe, but I'm not really sure why, except I love listening to them all the time.
Well, hey, I mean, they're definitely a solid 2 songs to say the least.
Oh, absolutely.
All right, so
Yeah, I love those songs.
Soul Man and Piano Man.
Let's go with Soul Man and Piano Man, because I can't think of anything else right now.
Now that we have the soundtrack down, everybody knows when you get the soundtrack first, then you write the script, and then you go to casting. Who plays you? And you can't say yourself because you are obligated to make a Stan Lee-esque cameo.
Okay. Well, of course, that's who I was going to say. Who would play me? Trying to think. Occasionally, somebody said I look like that actor, which, again, I didn't think it was necessarily a compliment, but he was an actor from SCTV from back in the day, and he was on Schitt's Creek. I actually have to Google right now because I can't think of his name. I'm Googling as we're speaking.
Daniel Levy?
Schitt's. Yes, Eugene Levy. Like, a few people have said you look like Eugene Levy, so we'll go with Eugene Levy.
Okay. Now that we have you casted, every movie has a supporting cast. Who would be 3 people with meaning to you and your story that would be in your movie, and who would play them?
Wow. Well, let me see. If you're really doing a serious story of my whole life, obviously my mom and dad are huge on that big influences on my life. If it's people in the wrestling industry, I would have to say I do a lot of work with Eric Child, aka Dr. Eric Christopher. Not the nicest guy on the show, but behind the scenes, absolutely a brother, and I couldn't run Pro Wrestling Action without him. Very close with Marina Tucker. She's basically family to me at this point. Who else would be supporting cast at this point? I guess we'll go with those. Those are 4 right there that come to the top of my mind.
Okay. And who will be playing these people?
Okay, that might be a little too much.
We could leave it to casting.
Huh?
We could leave it to casting if you prefer.
Yeah. It's a little too much to think of all these actors right now. So I'm sure Hollywood would find great people for them.
For sure. It's definitely sounding like a great movie, a blockbuster to say the least, and you could pre-order the tickets now.
Yeah, right. Actually, y'all should pre-order the tickets right now to Pro Wrestling Action All-Star Battle, and we have our website pwatickets.eventbrite.com, and all of our shows will have our tickets on that website, pwatickets.eventbrite.com, or you can go to Pro.
No worries. ProWrestlingAction.com as well, correct?
Oh, yeah. ProWrestlingAction.com is our website. It's been recently updated. So when you go to ProWrestlingAction.com, of course, you can see the shows upcoming and click to buy tickets from there. You can also check out our roster page, which is a roster page, because I feel it's a little silly for an independent company to have a roster page, being that these are not exclusive talents to us. When you have Tony Khan or Endeavor money, you can afford to hire somebody to be exclusive to you. But I rather say that we call them our all-stars. And the people that you see on our all-star page, they've worked matches for us, and they're indicative of the quality of the people that make up the heroes and villains of pro wrestling action.
Now on to a controversial subject. Pineapple on pizza. What's your stance?
Love it. Love it, love it, love it, love it, love it. Hawaiian pizza all the way, baby.
Alright, so we are pro pineapple on pizza.
I am pro pineapple on pizza, which I know is a controversial stance to take. I know there's a lot of people who refuse to believe pineapple belongs on a pizza, but if I'm eating pizza, that's one of my go-to pizzas is pineapple on pizza, aka the Hawaiian pizza.
What's your spirit Pokemon?
So I'm probably going to lose a lot of on this one, but I have never been a Pokemon person. I mean, I know Ash and Pikachu, but I don't know that much more about the Pokemons to say this one or that one. So I wouldn't want to upset the millions and millions of Pokemon and maniacs out there by guessing something and not being accurate with the Pokemons that I'm not that familiar with.
Well, let me rephrase the question. Who's your spirit DC character?
Batman. Just always got to go to the Batman. I'm literally house is halfway decorated in Batman. I've got toy Bat caves from the 80s. I've got Batman figures from the 60s to the current day. I'm actually literally looking at a 4-foot Batman action figure that adorns my living room that I got when Toys R Us was going out of business, and it was on clearance. I had to have it. My only regret is that he's not 6 foot tall instead of 4 foot tall. So that's how much of a Batman fanatic I am.
Always be yourself, unless you could be Batman. Then be Batman.
Yeah, that's it. I actually have that. I have a T-shirt that says, "I'm not saying I'm Batman, but nobody's ever seen us in the same room together."
We love the late great Tracy Smothers on the show. Do you know the acronym for Doug? THUG.
I am admitting I'm coming up with a brain fart right now, my friend. So I will tap out.
Then I will spell it out for you. T is
Please
for
do.
terrible, H is for hell, U is for ugly, and G is for jail. 'Cause a Doug can't spell.
Good job, brother. You got that one on me. Very good.
We love the late great Tracy Smothers, trying to keep the memory alive on the show.
There you go, brother.
Weirdest question you'll be asked on a wrestling interview, hopefully. Would you ever consider booking a Rock? Not Dwayne Johnson, not the country, an actual physical Rock.
Would I ever consider booking a Rock?
Yes, for a match.
I probably have not been asked that question before. I can safely say, though the closest I ever remember seeing to that, and that was not our promotion, was seeing a match years ago, which was the a hand grenade match, where there was an invisible hand grenade as a major part of the match. So I don't know who booked the invisible hand grenade, but it was an explosive match, to say the least.
So you would not be booking The Rock?
If Dwayne Johnson would want to come and work for us and he would do it at a rate I could afford, yes, we would book him in a heartbeat. Actually booking a real physical Rock off the street, I don't see that happening, but I've seen weirder things, so I will never say never. I've learned to say that in wrestling. Never say never.
Well, just for context, there is a wrestler named Psycho Mike that indeed wrestled a Rock for over 15 minutes in a Tungsten Man match. That's an Iron Man match that lasts for 2 weeks.
Wait. So who won?
It was a tie. But The Rock was the world champion, so he automatically retained his title because it was a tie.
Gotcha. So I'm unfamiliar with both The Rock and what is the other gentleman's name?
Psycho Mike.
Psycho Mike.
Yes.
Gotcha. Well, what was the finish of the match?
They were 319 to 319, and then the time just went out, and Mike couldn't get the extra pinfall on The Rock, so they tied. And then The Rock.
I may have to catch this on YouTube sometime.
I will send it to you.
Absolutely.
On a more serious,
we've seen our share of inanimate objects in a pro wrestling action show. I remember we did at To Infinity and Beyond. We had a tag team between the Sauce Bus, Valentina Rossi with the Detroit Barbie Marina Tucker, versus Shalance Royale, aka Shalance, and Alejandro the Lion. And at the end of the match, it was legitimately Shalance's birthday, so we were making a big deal about her birthday. And Valentina got on a hold of the cake we had from backstage for Shalance, while Marina held her and was about to give her a face full of her own cake. Luckily for Shalance, she was able to duck in time. Unfortunately, my referee, David Sanderson, got a face full of cake. So that is definitely an inanimate object starring in a match that's happened in pro wrestling action. Though, to be fair, we did not book the cake, and we have never brought the cake back after that match.
all right. Well, on a more serious note, where do you see yourself in 5 years?
Oof. Still running pro wrestling action and hopefully bigger and better. If you're doing the same thing in 5 years you're doing today, you've not learned anything.
Right.
So I definitely, in terms of pro wrestling action, want to just keep taking it bigger and bigger. We want new buildings, bigger audiences. Still want to retain our current base of fans and stay true to who we are. I would definitely like to do a lot more with video and television. Our YouTube channel is cooking right now. Please look us up on YouTube, Pro Wrestling Action Florida. But I would love to see us go even further. This initially came about because I wanted to be a local TV show. So I want some version of whatever that may be in the future. Although I have to admit, and again, it's probably just my personal age showing, where I am impressed by, oh my God, we're on TV. If it's a local TV show, unless you're really like on a major network right now, I don't think the current people who watch video really care that much about smaller TV stations like they did 15, 20 years ago. So literally you could reach a much larger audience on YouTube than you would on local TV. That being said, if I had an opportunity to do a local TV show, I would do it because that still is something in the back of my mind that I would love to do. But so whatever video avenue is the primary video avenue 5 years from now, that we would like Pro Wrestling Action to have a strong presence on that. So I think that's something definitely in 5 years I'd love to see. I'd love us to actually start running shows in other states by then. And to be frank, I would love an opportunity to have the title defended in another country. Yeah, because that actually harkens back a little bit. I was having a conversation with what the hell I'll say it, with Cha-Cha Charlie, who we used a lot in our first couple of years and recently did Monster Mash with us. And I remember in our first year, he's like, Dan, when are you gonna have your world titles before All Star? And I'm like, Charlie, so far we've only run our shows in Sanford, Florida. I can't have a world title that's ever been defended out of Sanford, Florida. It can't even be a state title because we've never run out of the city of Sanford. So if we run a title, it's going to be the Sanford title. But of course, since then we have run other areas in Florida. And again, my focus was not on a world title. It was on a theme title. But yeah, that would be something I would, by 5 years from now, I anticipate we will have run in other states and throughout more areas of the state of Florida. But yeah, that would be really cool to see our title defended in another country.
Is there a particular country you had your eye on, or just a different country?
Well, no, just different country, or more than one country, because then I could actually say this is a world title. That's kind of one of my pet peeves in independent wrestling, when somebody says, "Here's our world championship," and it's never been defended out of your backyard. It's not really a world championship. Unless your title is defended in other countries, it is not a world championship. So I would never refer to our championship as a world championship until it gets defended in other countries. And probably you would have to say more than one country to say world. Yeah, I don't think it has to be defended in every country, but if you defend in a couple of other countries, then I think you're justified in calling it a world championship.
I agree with that. Now, for anybody that hasn't seen pro wrestling action, what is a match?
What are you waiting for? Come on.
What is a match that you would recommend people watch that best shows off what pro wrestling action is all about as a company?
Oh my gosh. Just get to our YouTube channel, which by the way I pulled up while we were talking so I can say the actual channel name is at Pro Wrestling Action PWA, at Pro Wrestling Action PWA on YouTube. I would say I would almost hate to pick one and disregard everybody else. I would certainly look at any matches that are champions right now. That is the high-flying master of the froggy elbow, Ray Fury. Any match with him is going to be absolutely phenomenal with his athleticism. Our Voltage champion, the Trust Fund Kid, Blake Banks, an amazing character in the ring and a heck of an athlete. I would always recommend catch any match we have with our amazing Marvel's champion. And she is the longest reigning champion of all our champions in pro wrestling action, the Hollywood Horror Lexi Gomez. Any of their matches I would recommend watching. I know actually on our YouTube channel, we're starting to create playlists of storylines. So we had a terrific series of matches between Blake Banks and Sir Merrick Donovan. If you haven't seen Donovan in action, you really need to. This again falls back to our being very, very focused on characters. So Sir Merrick Donovan is a medieval knight who's a wrestler, and he lives that gimmick. And the gimmick might be a downplay of it, that persona, I should say, which again falls back to pro wrestling action. We're about the storylines, we're about the characters. If you see somebody wrestling on a show, black tights, black trunks, and hey, what's your character? Well, I'm the toughest guy around. Yeah, it's probably not your pro wrestling action wrestler. If it's someone you can get into that character, it's like, oh, I understand that character, but that character is also unique and fun to watch, and there's a lot of ways you can go with that character, and it's very over the top. That is a pro wrestling action all-star. So Blake and Sir Merrick Donovan had a great series of matches. It was 3 matches that ended in an incredible no DQ match. So I would definitely watch those series of matches. You can watch the history of the Marvels. I'm sorry, the All-Star Championship from at the time, the Undefeated Agony with the year-long reign minus a day, to Simon Says, the Emerald Emperor, to the Authority Eddie Torres, and then over to the Master of the Froggy Elbow, Mr. Ain't No Way, Ray Fury. I almost feel bad not saying every roster member I have, because every roster member we have, All-Star, it puts on some incredible matches. Heartbreak Jake, the Lifeguard Izzy Vaden. Of course, doing this, I'm going to forget names and feel really bad about that. But yeah, please check out some of the playlists, check out some of the shows, and you tell me what you think are the best matches.
Oh yeah. And you don't even have to, like I said, you don't have to go looking for it. The link to their YouTube page will be in the description of the video below, but on YouTube and Castbox. For anybody that hasn't seen it, wants to see it, wants to re-see it after this interview.
Oh yeah, and the great thing about our YouTube channel is that we do have virtually every show you've ever done and every match. So, and they're in playlists. So if you want to see the entire history of pro wrestling action, you can go right back to Heroes versus Villains 2021. I can't believe it's 2021 already. And watch show after show until you reach the current day. And hopefully that will be adding for many years to come. And then if you want to just check out some of the rivalries, you can check out the rivalries on the playlist. We have one playlist which is just for the women's matches called the Marvels of PWA. You can check that out. So yeah, there's so many ways to watch all these matches that I think are just a whole heck of a lot of fun. Yeah, I'm literally looking through the list as I'm talking to you. It's been a wild time, man. I mean, we some people ask me about like bringing in like big names from WWE or something. So we don't generally do that. We're more focused on our own characters, but we've been kind of blessed too to have some people who you've seen on TV who have, for various reasons, come in and been a fan of what we're doing and came in and did a match or two. WCW legend Glacier has appeared a few times for us. On our fourth show, I believe Renegades of the Ring, or is it Rise of the Times? Let's say Renegades of the Ring. The Gun Club from AEW came and did a match on our show, and they were terrific. Really, shout out to Austin and Colton. And Billy was actually in the audience just enjoying the show, and he's a trip. Great guy if you ever get to meet Billy Gunn. Leva Bates, who many people remember as Blue Pants, was on our Monster Mash show the first Monster Mash. And if you know Leva, she is a character in independent wrestling. She always is like a cosplay wrestler. Okay. And I say that as a compliment, not anything else. She literally inhabits a different character for every match. And she's done all kinds of crazy characters from comic books, movies, and video games and anime. But for Monster Mash, we had Lexi Gomez, the Hollywood Horror, versus Leva Bates as basically the mother from Psycho. So that was pretty wild. So we've been blessed to have various people who you've seen on the bigger shows come in and do our show, and we always appreciate when they do that and help bring a little more attention to our promotion. And they've always given us great feedback on being part of the action. But like I said, we're really about our all-stars, our characters. Some of our wrestlers literally have invented their personas at Pro Wrestling Action. Like Demented director Dean Taylor is a PWA original, and he's gone on the road as the Demented director Dean Taylor, and he's incredible to watch. We're really thrilled with him. So yeah, just please check us out, man. And I think there's something for everybody on a Pro Wrestling Action show.
Absolutely. And since we are nearing the conclusion of this interview, we are wrestling with the 8 questions of doom.
Oh no. Okay, questions of doom.
That is the correct answer. This is our speed round, our bonus round, the round where we see who you really are. Are you ready?
Probably not, but let's do it anyway.
Greatest wrestler of all time.
Rock.
Worst wrestler.
Oh, brother, I'm not gonna go there. I'm not getting that heat. Next question.
Would you like the default answer?
What is the default answer?
You have chosen Eva Marie.
Really? Oh, poor Eva, man. I wouldn't say anything bad about that girl. I don't like being negative about anybody. So, okay, we'll go with Eva Marie. No, hey, I love Fred Ottman, but can we go with Shockmaster? I mean, you know, great gimmick.
I will accept that answer. The Shockmaster gimmick.
Yes, because that said with love and admiration for Fred Ottman, who's a terrific guy.
Oh, yeah.
All right, I'm ready for question. I am probably not ready, but let's do question number 3.
You're booking the main event of WrestleMania for the World Championship. Who is the 2 combatants?
Oof. If it was today?
Anybody in general. Whoever you'd like. Past, present.
In general, if I'm just picking from the life of WWE, I'm going Rock Austin, or possibly Hogan Savage. 2 different eras there we can go with.
Okay.
That or I'm going with Ray Fury and Blake Banks, but hey, that's pro wrestling action. Okay.
If you could come out to anyone's entrance music, past or present, who would it be?
I used to come out to Golden Swagger. I'm trying to remember the artist's name. It was, I'll tell you really quickly, I don't know if I have time because of the speed round, but years ago, I was watching Late Night with James Corbin, and he was doing these rap battles between the celebrities.
Yep.
And Anne Hathaway came out to this really cool jazzy, not jazzy, but like really horn-heavy instrumental music. I was like, man, I like that. And then I heard it again on a video about a kid who was playing basketball with Michael Jordan, like a Make-A-Wish kid or something like that. I'm like, I got to find out what that was. And at the time, I had Shazam on my phone where you could click it and hear the song. And it's called Golden Swagger. Shame on me that I can't remember the artist's name, but for years, whenever I would announce an independent wrestling show, if they had an opening song, or I would come out to that. In fact, let me see. I don't know if we'll get arrested here, but that was a little piece of it right there. I think your system shut my music off, so you wouldn't get arrested or shut down by YouTube. But it is Golden Swagger. And the image is big, heavy horn riffs. Oh, it just went again. Sorry about that. I'm trying to shut it off.
Don't worry. I actually know that song.
So that was my indie show entrance music when a show would have me come out with music. But I've never used it at Pro Wrestling Action.
All right. Finish the sentence. Kayfabe is...
Dead.
We would have also accepted tastes great on toast.
Okay.
Squash, vegetable or fruit?
Vegetable.
It is indeed a fruit. It has seeds.
No.
Logic.
I did not know that.
Yep.
Okay, I learn something new every day.
New Japan wrestler Tai Chi, his ring gear gets smaller every year, revealing more of himself to the world. My question, what is the appropriate trunks to butt cheek ratio for ring gear?
I'm just going to say, because there are some of my wrestlers who cover the butt completely and some that it's all butt all the time. So I would say the ratio depends on the ratio of attractiveness of the gluteus maximus, and we'll just leave it at that.
And
I promise Pro Wrestling Action fans, you will never get my butt out in a Pro Wrestling Action show. So it's safe to come to our shows.
Okay. And the last question, the main event, the thing everybody wants to know. Have you ever had a conversation with a stranger in a supermarket about Darby Allin?
No, I have not.
And that is the correct answer. And
that is the correct answer. I can guarantee I've never had that conversation with a stranger in a supermarket.
Yes. And that will conclude this interview. Thank you so much for coming on and doing this with me.
No, my pleasure, James. Thank you for doing this. I really appreciate you getting out there and doing your show and getting the word out about independent professional wrestling. And if I could throw in my last plug, everyone, please check out ProWrestlingAction.com with links to our Facebook, Instagram, and our YouTube, where you can check out all of our amazing matches. And if you're in the area, and if you're not, it's worth coming to the area. Pick up a ticket for the next Pro Wrestling Action show on ProWrestlingAction.com or PWAtickets.eventbrite.com.
All-Star Battle is in July.
Yes, All-Star Battle is Sunday, July 20th at the historic Sanford Civic Center in downtown Sanford, Florida.
And you already have a show scheduled for September as well, correct?
Yes, absolutely. We've been invited back by our great friends at the City of Mount Dora. We're going to be presenting the wrestling at the Pit Masters and Pourers event, which is such a fun event. They do it once a year in September. It's a very affordable low ticket price. And it's basically, I believe, 16 barbecue food trucks competing with each other.
Ooh. And
when you come to the event, while supplies last, because they go really quickly, you can get free samples from every truck, and you can also buy full meals. But if you get enough samples, you don't have to eat anymore. They'll have some bands, which I don't know the bands yet this year, and we will be presenting Pro Wrestling Action in conjunction with our good friends at Monsters in the Morning, 104.1 FM radio.
Perfect. And you don't have to type it into your Google machine. All of the links to all of Pro Wrestling Action's social media and website will be in the description of the video below, but on YouTube and Castbox, simply click the link. A new tab will appear on whatever device you are on. You have no excuse. Buy a damn ticket.
There you go.
Of course.
I like that.
Of course, if you like, thank you for listening. If you like what we're doing, please like, subscribe, comment. But on YouTube and Castbox, this was sponsored by Rogue Energy and Player One Coffee. Join us next Tuesday and Wednesday for new incredible interviews, and follow the show at Wrestling with E, both on X, Thread, and Instagram for information on who we're interviewing, when we're interviewing them, links to those interviews, and so much more. Follow me personally at JamesJ993. Alright, when I say wrestling wit, you say entertainment, okay?
Okay.
For our special guests, Daniel Max Shaw, Kaliko Yacht, Scooter Dust, I'm James J, and this has been Wrestling Wit
Entertainment.
Hey folks, this is the Colossal Mike Law, and you are listening to Wrestling with Entertainment. Enjoy the show, support these guys. We appreciate it very much. We'll see you at ringside.